Hello, everyone. You are listening to Kingdom Stories, where we tell stories of hope and power from the lives of everyday Christians just like you and me. It is my hope that these stories encourage you in your walk with the Lord and remind you weekly how awesome our God is. Hey, everybody. I'm here with my family from church. I've got Megan and Brendan Mosey here. You guys want to say hi?
Hey.
Hello.
So you guys want to start us off by kind of giving us a little bit about your background and kind of take it from there?
Yeah, so as you said, we are Brendan and Megan Mosey. We have been married for 15 years as of 2020. We met in high school in geometry class. So
Wow.
she was on track uh, for the usual sophomore in geometry class, and I was not. I was a senior in geometry, so two grades behind in math. So she was my tutor, and actually ended up we knew each other through her grandfather. He and I went to church together, and that's how we met. I had a girlfriend at the time. I really wasn't into her, but she was really persistent, and after weeks and weeks or months of asking, I finally said yes to a date.
Okay. He sees it that way, but yeah. I'm Megan. I am a nurse. I've been a nurse since 2007, so for 13 years. I was an ortho trauma nurse, and then I was a labor and delivery nurse. Now I work in an OBGYN's office. I'm also a mama to two sweet girls. Hudson is 8 and Roslyn is 4. Yeah.
I am a software salesman. I've been a software salesman for about 1 year. Prior to that, I worked in the automotive industry for Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen for a decade. I also have 2 daughters, 4 and 8.
All right. So you guys want to tell us, kind of jump into your story and start working through what it is you guys had for us today?
Sure. I it's hard to just like jump in and to like one thing. I feel like God has been working in our lives since since I was a teenager. But I was not raised in the church, so it's amazing to me to think that God was working in my life even when I really didn't have a relationship with him, but he was totally there. But I think after we started really living our lives for Jesus. Brendan was raised in the church, but I don't know that he was really like living his life for Jesus or knew what a real relationship with Jesus was about or what it meant. And so we started like living for Jesus, if you will, after we got married. And we're living on the East Coast. We served in a homeless ministry, and prior to that, I had never seen a homeless person. I was 21 years old before I saw my first homeless person.
Wow.
White suburbia, and everybody was wealthy, and homelessness was a thing, but it was hidden and not talked about. So when we went to the East Coast, we served homeless people, and that's when God just really grew my heart for the homeless population. I still remember the name of the very first homeless man I spoke with. His name was Robert. He was a middle-aged Black man with dreadlocks, and he was missing half of his teeth, but he stole my heart. And so yeah, our love for the homeless population just grew for that community. And when we moved back home, which home is Indiana, was Indiana, we were living the dream. We had bought our first house. We were trying to have our first baby. Brendan had gotten out of the military. We were trying to adjust to that, like living together and him not being gone for 3/4 of our or the time that we were spent together. And then God just kind of started working. I would say that was, what year was that? It was, Hudson was alive. So
2014, 2013.
2013 and 2013, I feel like was the beginning of where we would say we've seen God the most in our lives, and it's been through our obedience to him. In 2013, he spoke to me. I was sitting in bed, and I literally heard, like, it was like I could feel him there. And he was like, you need to leave your church that you're at. And I was kind of just like, I didn't understand. I knew that it had kind of gotten stale a little bit, but not, like, we're not church hoppers. So it wasn't like, oh, you like leave just because it's getting boring or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then, we felt the prompting from God to leave. And then in that same moment, God was like, oh yeah, by the way, I want you to sell your house. Oh, and I want you to buy a bigger house so that you can let homeless people live with you. And so I kind of stewed on that for a little bit, because I was like, how am I going to tell my husband? Like, we have like a 1.5-year-old. Life's going really well, but let's leave our church, sell our house, and invite homeless people to live with us.
So, quick question. How was it that God told you to do that? Because a lot of people say, oh, God told me to do this. But what was the prompting? What was it that really, the mark that you knew was from God?
I think, honestly, I prayed a lot about it, trying to discern, like, is this God, or is this something that I subliminally wanted to do? I mean, I never in my life up until that moment ever considered selling our house and opening our home to homeless people. So that was the first clue. Like, it was seemingly out of the blue, nothing that I had been kind of already thinking about, or nothing I had, that we had even discussed. And then just praying about it. I was also reading a book I highly recommend. I'm not really a book reader, but it's called Anything by Jenny Allen. And it was just, I think I've maybe read 5 books front to back in my life. Like, I'm not gonna lie. And that's one of them. And so it was really life-changing for me. And I felt like that was God, like, timely. And then also after prayer, when I went to Brendan, and his response was, well, who are we to tell God no? And so there was no fighting. There was no, like, you're crazy, or, oh, let's pray about it as a couple. It was just, yes. And so we just took that bold step in obedience. I mean, I think there was nothing about what we were about to do that was not biblical. I feel like that's like the first thing is, is this thing I feel like God's calling me to do, is it biblical?
Mm-hmm.
And so nothing about it was not biblical. Everything about it seemed to be God driven. And then, through prayer, it was confirmed.
We actually had plans to kind of buy or build in our dream community, which was on the other side of town. And, we would drive through and kind of map out where we would want the house to be, or look at the model to decide if we wanted to buy the pre-existing model, the showroom one. And so, a few months of doing that, you kind of got your heart set on what you want your next phase of life to be. And then Megan told me that she just she just kind of had been feeling this pull in the other direction, and then she sat at the at the neighborhood. She was sitting in the neighborhood in her vehicle, and just knew, like she just knew right away. Did you hear God as well in that time say, like, this is not for you, this is not going to happen, you need to buy a pre-existing home? Basically, just, you need to start doing your home search, because this is not going to work out for you. What the plans that you're coming up with for yourself, this is just not my plan for you. So you need to keep on keeping on. And that's when we ended up doing the next phase, which was the home search. And we went through, and we had a family friend who was our realtor. We spoke with her about, what we wanted. We wanted a bigger house. We knew that, like Megan mentioned a minute ago, we knew that she was feeling was hearing God tell us to open our home. So we needed space. We needed a bigger house. We only had a 3-bedroom. It was a 1-story. So we needed a place that we would be able to house people. So we had our realtor friends start looking for us. We found a few houses. So one day we went home shopping with her, and we looked at the very first house. I didn't like it. Did you like it?
It was okay.
It was okay. So we kind of were like, yeah, well, we'll file that in the back of our minds. And then we just went on. We looked at several houses. We looked for weeks and weeks. And so something about that first house, what was the story? I can't remember.
Well, to back it up, though, when we did decide, when I had the moment of, okay, like sitting in the car in the neighborhood where I wanted to build my dream house, and we had already made plans to build my dream house, and then to just kind of, God was just kind of like, nope. And I cried, and I was upset with God, and I said, like, what are you doing? Like, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, but again, like, it was not his will. And so,
yeah, we had already gone to like the builder's headquarters, looked at like all the custom, like all the examples of tile, all the examples of cabinets, and like we had done all that, and we were pretty far along in the process. It's like, how do you let this happen after we've invested all of that time and all of that energy on taking this route, and when you're going to stop us, throw an audible or call an audible, and then suddenly send us down a different path.
And I think too, I feel like a lot of times when God calls you to things, it just seems kind of crazy. Like, this was in the dead of winter in Indiana, and Indiana winters are not like California. We were in the middle of a historical ice storm with like sub-zero temperatures, like state of emergency. And God's like, oh, I need you to put your house on the market. And, but we did it, and our house sold in 6 days.
Whoa.
Yeah. So and then we started our home search, and, like Brendan said, we saw the first house, put it in the back of our mind. 3 months later, that same house was still for sale in a neighborhood that houses sell in like 2 weeks tops, and it had been 3 months. And so we were like, that's odd, or is it? So we really thought like, okay, well, maybe this deserves more attention. But we had heard that from our realtor that house was going to have an open house that weekend, and if we were really interested, we needed to make a move. But we were like, we want to pray about it. So that weekend came, and our realtor reached out to the homeowner's realtor, and she asked how the open house went. And the realtor said, well, funny you mention it. No one showed up, not a single person. And I went online, and there was no mention of an open house anywhere. So nobody knew about it. So no wonder it came. So we really just took that as like a divine intervention, like nothing can explain this. And we made our move. Like, it was not what we had in mind. It was not what we thought we were going to get. It was not even anything that Brendan was in love with, or, I mean, it was okay. I liked it. But it was God's plan. It was what was perfect for his will. So we moved forward and we purchased that house. And, after that, we would host three women that were straight out of prison. And we also hosted a missionary. We hosted summer camp counselors, and we would start our adoption journey in that house, and also, bring home our second daughter, Rosalind, through adoption, and just start building, our lives. But it was that initial step of obedience that night, sitting in bed and hearing God and not just dismissing it, but praying about it. And then, talking, seeking wise counsel and talking to Brendan about it. That kind of just spurred the rest of it. And I think, and then, we adopted Rosalind, and she's actually from Arizona. So we started a relationship with her birth mom, and we were there when Rosalind was born, and we made a promise to her birth mom that we would see her every year. And so, starting when she was 2, because flying with a 1-year-old seemed like a horrible idea. And so in June of 2018, when Rosalind was 2, we flew out to see her, and that was the first time, like, post Rosalind being born and all the raw emotions that adoption carries, and that we were able to just, like, bond with her and spend time with her. And she has 2 other children as well that are Rosalind's siblings, and we were able to meet them. Rosalind was able to meet them. And we made that a West Coast vacation, and we went to San Diego, and Brendan was stationed there when he was in the military, but we knew that we didn't want to just stay in San Diego because we had seen it. We'd kind of been there and done that. So we were like, why don't we go to San Francisco?
We both kind of had that. And I lived in San Diego for like 9 months, and it's far enough away. It's not like you can just like zip up here for but like never really cared to come up here. And I just had the thought one night, and over dinner, I just said, hey, what do you think about going up to San Francisco as an extra leg of the journey? And she said, in effect, hey, I kind of had that same thought. So we did it. And it's not often that we like agree on anything, 100%. So whenever that happens, we tend to run with it. So I'm like, great, boom, done, decided. So we did. We came up here, and we felt more at home here than we did where we were born and raised, and all of our family is, and we're more familiar there than anything else. And it was a weird feeling. I mean, we've traveled a lot as a family and as a couple. We've been to dozens of states and cities, and just have never felt that way before. And it's hard to explain, even to our most Christian family members. They didn't understand it. So it was something that we just kind of shrugged our shoulders and said, well, whatever. I mean, this is how we feel. We feel like it took us a month or so of collaboration and prayer, but then we decided to, hey, we're gonna move. So that's what we did.
I mean, yeah, I think I remember for me, like you said, we've traveled, we've gone places, and a lot of times when you're on vacation, it's like, oh, I don't want to go home. Like, I don't want my vacation to be over. Like, I like it here. It's pretty, whatever. But this was more than that. Like, it was almost like it was sad that we felt like we were leaving home. And for me, my moment of like, I feel like we should move here was at Big Sur. We went to Big Sur, and I would not categorize myself as a nature girl. And I appreciate the nature, like the beauty of nature from a distance. Like, okay, show me a picture of what you did. But Big Sur, I remember we pulled over and we were looking at this one specific area of Big Sur, and I just was overcome with like this emotion, and like I started crying, and I was just like, I want to live here. Like, I feel like this is, and at that point he was kind of like, okay, like I don't think it had hit him yet.
Well, that was also one of the first things we did. So, it was, at that point, it was kind of like a joke. Like, this is like San Francisco. Like, this is untouchable to us, like, we're from the Midwest. People here like spend $2 million on a house that they would spend 400,000 where we come from. There's no way we can afford this. So that slowly changed, my perspective on that situation and my opinion slowly changed over the course of the week that we were here.
Yeah, I mean, then we, as a family, we went on a picnic at Chrissy Fields, and we were sitting there like at the base of the Golden Gate Bridge, and Brendan just like, I remember he just kind of like was looking off at the Golden Gate Bridge, and he was like, I think we should move here. Like, and it was after that we started praying about it. And I had interviewed for a job back home that I was more than qualified for.
You were really the only ideal candidate. And they were hiring from within. So not to Shanghai takeover, but
no, and I didn't get it. And I was kind of like upset about it, a little bit. But then all of this started happening, and it was very clear to me I didn't get that job because we're supposed to be moving to California.
We were also in the middle of refinancing our house. So we're 3 or 4 months into the process, had been sending paperwork packets back and forth, signed all sorts of stuff, had inspections done. And the very last step in the process was some kind of inspection. I can't remember what it was. There were so many. And so like we went to California in the middle of that process. And so like a week after we got back was the last step in the process. And the inspector came and went, we got a call from the mortgage company, and they said, hey, look, the house was valued just a little bit less than what we had initially valued it at. And we said, okay, what does that mean? He said, you need to bring $8,000 to closing or you can't refinance your house. We're like, well, we did this to save money, not spend $8,000. So we didn't have $8,000, and we said, okay, well, never mind. And that was the end of that. So between the house refinance falling through, between Megan not getting the promotion, those were two things that would have kept our roots even more deeply seated in Indiana. So having both of those fall through, those were more of a burning bush to lead us into having Megan get her California nursing license, which inexplicably, well, you and I know that as God, he allowed her to have some sort of fast tracking of her California nursing license. It went, 3 weeks?
Well, it was just, when we started this process, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go out first, and I'm going to figure out what hospital I want to work at. At that time, Brennan was in school, and I was kind of carrying us financially. And so that we had made the decision that I was going to come out here first. He was going to stay back in Indiana with the kids and let our oldest daughter finish school. and I was warned, like, okay, well, you realize that, you know, it was in like July.
It was July.
Yeah, maybe like
July, August.
And if you are wanting to do this, like, you're not getting out to California probably before the end of the year, because it takes that long for a nurse's license to get approved and issued. And so I was like, okay, well, I better start the process. So I started the process, and like 3 weeks later, I had my California nurse's license.
Wow.
So that like was supposed to take months happened in weeks. And so I became a travel nurse, and I took my first assignment, and it was my first assignment was at Kaiser Oakland. And so I was like, okay, now where do I live? What do I do? I'm going to a place by myself, and Oakland doesn't exactly have the best reputation, especially West. And so I'm like, this is kind of scary, but I'm like, God, I trust you. Like, you asked us to do this. You've been faithful in the past, you know, when we've heard and we've obeyed, and I trust you. And so found this little place in Albany, which is super small. But just so happened that somebody I worked with, her aunt lived in Albany, and it was about 2 blocks away from where the place was I was thinking about moving to. So moved there. The owners of the little Airbnb, she was a nurse. And so, you know, we had that in common. And yeah, I don't know, like the rest, I guess, is history. Like, I moved there, and I never thought that we would call Oakland home. I thought we would live in Berkeley, and I really pushed that. And Brendan just kept saying, I don't know, like, I just really feel this call to Oakland. I feel this call to Oakland. And after living here for a while, driving around, praying, I felt that same call, but it took a little bit for me to, you know, feel the same way. And then so we were like, okay, we are gonna live, Oakland is where it's at. Now we need to find a church. So the church process began, and we had a list of churches from various resources, from word of mouth or our own research that we had done. And then there was one little church that Brendan heard about on Reddit, and checked it out. It was The Movement, and heard Pastor Ed speak, and I knew that was our home, our church home. And yeah, that was in probably like November or December. And in January, things started getting hard for our oldest daughter. This is January of 2019. She just really was starting to struggle in school and emotionally. And
we were still separated at that point, living here and living in Indiana.
He was trying to get our house, you know, ready to sell. And so we were supposed to move in June, and we were like, she's struggling, like, let's do it now. Put our house on the market, and
middle of winter.
In winter again. And it sold, I think it was like a couple weeks.
Yeah, it was on the market for, I think, 2.5 weeks. It wasn't.
Yeah, like 2 weeks. And yeah, the rest is history. And we all we were joined as a family in California in March of 2018. And 2019, I mean, sorry. That's right. March of 2019. And you know, we just started our life here, and we've just continued to, you know, just always have, like, I feel like we're always asking God, like, what do you want us to do? Like, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to, like, do you want us to be still? Or are we supposed to be doing something else? It's a prayer that I pray every day. Just show me what you want me to do. I'm here. Use me.
So you've said that you really felt called here to Oakland. Do you have any ideas yet why you were called to Oakland? Or are you still trying to figure that one out?
For me, I actually was just praying through this the other day. Like, it hasn't been revealed to me 100% yet, but I can see him moving, for sure. And people we've met, or, just a couple weeks ago, we're small group leaders at the movement, and we had a couple new believers join our group, and I had lunch with one of them, and I was sitting there, and I realized, like, I was speaking to somebody who did not know Jesus. Like, she did not know who he was. She did not know what a relationship with him was about. She didn't even really know the God that we serve. And I've never in my life had the opportunity to speak to somebody who did not know who Jesus was. Living in
Wow.
the West, living in the Bible Belt, everybody knows who Jesus is. Everybody knows who God is. And for the most part, everybody serves the same God. Everybody's a Christian. What kind of Christian you are is a little, are you Baptist? Are you Pentecostal? Are you, whatever. So that was one eye-opening thing for me, is that God brought us here. We were raised where we were raised for a reason, so that we could go out and we could make disciples and bring people to Jesus. And so I think that's part of why we're here, but I do still feel like there's more. There's more to the story that's left to be told, but I think that is a huge part of why we were raised where we were raised and why we live where we live now.
Hmm. It's part of the journey of discovery, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't know why he does what he does, but later on we find out. And it's funny because, people say, oh, God works in mysterious ways. But like, you can always look back and see how he did it and be like, oh, that makes total sense,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's awesome how he works like that.
Definitely. And even when you're going through it, I feel like a lot of times you don't realize he's working. You don't realize that, we didn't realize, that we were trying to build a house when we were supposed to buy an existing one. We didn't realize, like, we thought we were done having kids, and, he called us to adopt. And then that actually, like, spurred our move to California in the end, because we were in Arizona visiting her birth mom.
Yeah, and one thing that's actually really interesting, to backtrack 5 years, we were paired with a birth mother out of Virginia before Rosalind's birth mom. We actually went with, for lack of a better term, a headhunter agency for adoption, because it helps you. Well, whatever. You cast a wider net, and you're not just reaching the birth mothers in your area. You're reaching birth mothers all across the United States. So it really it helps you be, out there more. It increases your chances. So we were paired with a woman who was in Virginia for a couple months, and we just stopped hearing from her, and we kind of wondered what was up. Then on Christmas night, we actually got a call from the adoption agency, and they said, hey, just to let you know, she actually gave birth to the baby. It was a baby boy, like 3 or 4 days ago. She never told anybody, and she decided to keep the baby. So in the moment, I was really disappointed. Megan actually was at work, or no, she was in the bedroom putting Hudson, our older daughter, to sleep for the night. And then I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell Megan? And so I just waited a few minutes, and I said, I got to tell you something. The adoption agency is called, and she already had the baby, and she changed her mind. She wants to keep the baby. She wants to parent, which is great. It's good. But in the moment, it was a really big letdown for us, and it was super disappointing. Megan actually took it really well. She's like, well, this wasn't meant to be for us. And it was hard. But then like a month later, we were paired with Rosalind's birth mom. So if we had been paired with and had adopted the baby boy from Virginia, he would have never come to Arizona, would have never driven to San Diego, we would have never driven to San Francisco, and we wouldn't live here.
So it's all, God just kind of all rolled it together to bring you here.
Definitely.
You get blindsided by God a lot. You know, I liken it to the scene in Jurassic Park where the guy's watching the one dinosaur and then he is attacked by the two on the side. He's not paying attention to God's actual plan, which is going to pounce on him at any moment. That's where we tend to kind of hyper focus, is what we think we should be paying attention to, our trajectory. And in reality, our next step is coming at us from the side.
Gotta love it. We're focused on one thing and he takes us another way. It's like the Jesus juke, you know?
The Jesus juke. I'm gonna steal that, Jesse.
I just thought of that. I'm sure somebody else thought of it first though.
You better help on that.
Make a t-shirt fast.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for your story and your time. I think it's really great hearing how God moved in your lives.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us on.
Share.
Yeah. Any last messages you'd want to say before I end the podcast here? Any other final closing thoughts or last shots?
No.
I don't think so. I just hope that like our story can one day, well, not even, I mean, even to people who are listening to this podcast, but also to our kids, like, to like go big, you know, like to be bold in your obedience and, you know, because you never know like what God has in store for you or how much you're going to miss out on by living in fear. Because he is faithful and he, you know, if he calls you to it, he's going to bring you through it. And, so I hope that our lives are an example to others, especially our kids. And that we continue to just remember all these times that he's been faithful when he calls us to do that crazy thing.
Yeah, it tends to be a pretty drastic jump. That's how we normally can tell that it's God, and then we have that initial prayer consult, you know, where we spend a few days or a couple weeks, kind of verifying its authenticity. But it's just really important to act on when you feel God is telling you to do something. I mean, it's not, well, maybe next year. I'm kind of in the middle of a work thing, or like the delayed obedience is disobedience. So to spend too long second guessing or doubting his plan, I mean, that's just not God's plan for you. That's not his will for you. And it's not easy. It's not like we've got it all figured out, but it seems to be getting a little easier to pull the trigger every time he asks us to do something. And I mean, having homeless people right out of jail live with us is step one. I mean, that was a pretty big leap. Baby steps leading up to that point. It was, okay, step one is this lady's getting out of jail in 2 or 3 weeks. She needs a place to live, and that was our thought process behind it. When you get let out of jail, at least in the county where we came from, it was, okay, it's midnight on your release date, don't come back,
Wow.
And they just open the door and then you're pushed outside. And who do you call? Who do you go to? Usually it's the people that you were with when you got sent to jail. So generally that's who you call. And we wanted to help people change that trajectory and have a different path. So, I kind of got off topic, but
yeah, it's a good point though, is, that's a leap of faith, and that obedience thing, Delayed obedience is disobedience. I like that message.
Mhm.
You can use that if you want.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you liked the story today, please don't hesitate to spread the love. Share it, like it, and subscribe to hear more. If you want to share a story from your life about an encounter with God, please don't hesitate to email me at kingdomstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Stay safe and remember, the kingdom is among us.